Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Tromsø Twilight, the channel where I, Vincent, talk to you, Cosmic Emptiness, about books, movies, and films that I'm interested in or that I enjoy. As promised, I'm here in the third of a short series about David Lynch, in commemoration of him since he recently died, to talk about the film Inland Empire, which I saw at the cinema yesterday. If you notice, it's dark in the background and I have a very harsh light on me. This is because this is what Inland Empire looks like for about 3 hours. If we were really going to look like the movie, I would have to have my face super close up to the camera so that you could see every flaw and wrinkle in my skin. Unfortunately, that makes me look very old. Although I thought about it, and this movie came out 20 years ago, which means, in fact, unfortunately, that I am old. The movie came out in 2005, and I remember my friend Guillaume went to see it before me. He was a guitarist in an extremely dark, blackened grindcore band, and he came back from seeing Inland Empire and said, "No, that was too much." I saw it actually on DVD, not in the cinema originally, some years ago, and I remember that I really loved it. But strangely, when I went to see it now, I realized I couldn't remember anything about it apart from some key shots and the final sequence, which is a lot of people dancing in a room while a woman lip syncs the words to Cinnamon by Nina Simone. Okay, so Inland Empire is one of the most abstract of David Lynch's films, and it's probably impossible to summarize. But I wanted to just talk about my own experience of seeing it and my own ideas and thoughts about the film. I haven't spent much time researching people's opinions of the film, so I don't know if maybe everything I'm going to say has already been said. This is just one viewer's experience. The film to me is a movie that's partially about film and film as an escape, film as a dream, Hollywood as the dream factory. It starts with a sequence with what appears to be a Polish prostitute in a hotel. And then there's a woman who in the titles is called Lost Girl, who's watching a television set on which much of the film seems to take place. On this TV screen, she sees a weird sitcom family of rabbits, and then she begins to watch a story about a character played by Laura Dern. This character's name is Nikki, and she is about to get her big comeback role in a movie in Hollywood, acting in a film directed by a character played by Jeremy Irons. Right before she gets the role, a strange woman comes to see her and predicts that she will get the role, and also says that the movie involves a grisly murder, which isn't something that Nikki recognizes from the script. She also makes cryptic references to two times, 9:45 and just after midnight. The first sort of half hour after the initial surreal sequences with the woman in the hotel appeared to be a quite straightforward story about Nikki beginning to act in the film. She has a somewhat controlling husband who is extremely rich and influential in Hollywood, seems to be Polish, and he threatens her co star not to have an affair with her. The movie is about two people having an affair, and the characters in the movie are Susie and Billy. After about half an hour, whether Laura Dern is Susie or Nikki begins to become increasingly unclear. At times, she seems to be Nikki playing Susie, forgetting that she's acting, and at other times, she seems to be Susie remembering that she once was an actress playing herself. It becomes more complicated because there's a curse on the film, an old Polish curse, and this curse means that the stars of the film always die when anyone tries to make it. In addition, Susie and Billy at first seem to be in the characters in this film seem to be quite rich. It seems to be a sort of middle class or upper class drama about infidelity. But as the film goes on, there's like another version of Susie who's poorer, appears to be a drug addict, and possibly a prostitute. And as the story continues, it seems that perhaps all of this is being imagined by a Polish woman who is being trafficked, or who is the originator of these stories or these fantasies. But it's not as straightforward as that, because it's almost as if Nikki is playing Susie, who's dreaming of being Nikki, and as if the Polish woman is a new iteration of an older story from the early 20th century about a woman whose lover was killed. So for about 2.5 hours I was watching this film, and I kept thinking, okay, who is the real person? Who is the original woman? One of these women is the actual woman who's been subjected to social control by her husband, violence, threats, her lover's been murdered, and she's escaping into fantasies of being the other woman. Maybe the woman watching the television is being held hostage in the hotel after her lover's been killed, and she's imagining being an actress, but the fantasy collapses into somebody kind of living in poverty and her husband joining the circus. And then she's imagining a barbecue, but then her husband spills ketchup on his t-shirt, which reminds her of an injury. But every time I thought I knew which one was the real one, that was undermined within the film, or a new version of that one appeared. Like Susie seemed to have a third version of her. So Laura Dern is constantly shifting between these different versions of different characters, and you never really know which is which, and they seem to go into each other's worlds and are constantly confused by which part or which reality they're in. And at a certain point, it occurred to me, the point is not that any one of these are real, or that any one of them are really the other one. The point is that it's always the same story. Whether it's a rich actress, or a woman in the projects, or a Polish woman in the early 20th century, or a trafficked girl in some sleazy hotel, there's always a guy treating the woman like property, and there's always an undercurrent of violence. And I don't think that Inland Empire has anything so straightforward as a moral, but while I was watching the movie, I was thinking, I understand why so many women like David Lynch's films, because he is one of the few filmmakers who really made movies about what an absolute nightmare it is to be a woman. Speaking of nightmares, people often talk about David Lynch's films as being dreamlike or following a dream logic, and I don't always necessarily see them as being like dreams. But I really did have that experience with this movie, because, like in a dream, I was always able to follow it, and it felt like it made sense, yet it wasn't coherent in any way that makes kind of sense in waking logic. It really followed like a dream-like associative journey, which I felt while I was in it that I understood every moment, but if you asked me to explain them, I wouldn't be able to. Another comparison is a psychedelic experience. It's almost as if when you go into the movie, you've the first moments with the Strange Rabbit sitcom and the part of the hotel is like you're taking the drug, and then it's followed by something like 20 minutes, 15-20 minutes, which seems like a slightly off but very coherent linear narrative. And then slowly it starts to get stranger until there's like a shock moment where a lamp makes an extremely loud noise, and from that point things really start to collapse, and it's as if you're in a kind of ego death. You don't know who anybody is, going from room to room, and you're going from reality to reality, from place to place, from time to time. And then there are peaks and troughs, waves, as in a psychedelic experience, where it seems like things are coming together and things are starting to make sense again. And then it slips and it's gone and you're back and you've lost your footing. And this really came home to me around 20-25 minutes before the end of the film, which is after 2.5 hours. Laura Dern's character is on Hollywood Boulevard and she's dying, and her death is excruciating, moving, but absurd at the same time. It takes a very long time. The people around her are talking past her, and then one of them starts to talk to her and says, it's okay, you're just dying, and kind of helps her die. And I thought at that point, okay, finally I understand. It's been her the whole time. She's been dying. She's like a sex worker on Hollywood Boulevard. She's a heroin addict, and all of the rest of this has been the dreams and fantasies that have come to her in her dying moments. But then the camera starts to zoom out as she lies dead on the floor, and another camera comes into frame, and the people around her stand up and they're actors and they walk away, but she's still dead. But it's the film from the beginning that you haven't seen for like nearly 2 hours. They're back making the film again, and the director's there. And then she's not dead. She stands up, and everybody starts applauding for her performance. Which, oh my God, if Laura Dern didn't deserve applause for that performance. If anyone ever asks me who my favorite actress is, let's say I'm in an imaginary job interview and they say, what are your 3 best characteristics and who's your favorite actress? I know who I'm going to say. But she stands up and they're like, well done, Nikki, that's such a great performance. But she's not Nikki. And she wanders out of the room and she wanders into a new space, and you haven't sobered up yet. You're still wasted. It's still abstract. It's still confusing, but it's starting to resolve. Okay, I guess that's my thoughts about Inland Empire. I'm in huge admiration for this film. It looks like my friend Guillaume said back when he said it was too much. It's a little exhausting because it's all filmed in this early digital, which means it's sort of not very, the images are quite often not very sharp at a distance, but they're like super sharp close up. And the way that Lynch normally uses light looks totally different. Flatter somehow. Everything looks dirtier. It's not as playful as a lot of his earlier films, but it's super beautiful, and it like makes sense on an emotional level, but you'll probably never fully understand your experience of it. R.I.P. David Lynch. That's my video about Inland Empire. Thank you for listening, and my love to you. Take care.